The Berry Fresh theme is filled with cute level 1 monsters, but don't let them fool you, they can still pack a serious punch if you're not ready for them. Hello everyone and welcome to the first episode of Rush Review, a series where I go over decks and themes to help introduce them to people who might want to learn about Rush, or for those that might want to try something new. This video is going to be broken into 4 main parts. We'll first talk about the monsters and showcase some tech and strategies to help your duels. Then we'll move on to the back row cards and how effective they can be. Afterwards, I'll talk about the other cards that can synergize well with them and end things off with the main weaknesses of the deck. So, without further ado, let's start the show. Most of the Berry Fresh monsters have the ability to increase their attack power by 1500, usually though at the cost of sending a card from your hand or field to the graveyard. These are cards like Berry Fresh Cure, Pleasure, and Smart. However, they have secondary effects as well to help return cards from the graveyard back to your hand. If we take a look at Berry Fresh Cure, we see that alongside its ability to gain 1500 attack, it can bring back a Berry Fresh Garden, the main field spell, or Berry Fresh Swimming, one of their trap cards. So what would happen if you already had a Berry Fresh Garden on your field when you activated this card? Well, when you activate Berry Fresh Cure and send your Berry Fresh Garden from your field to the grave, Cure gains the 1500 attack, but then you can return Garden back into your hand from the graveyard, allowing you to play it on the field again. You're able to buff its attack at no cost at all. It is important to note that you can do this with your own face-down trap cards, but then you're telegraphing to your opponent that you have that certain card when you play it again in face-down position. So just keep that in mind. Pair this with other cards you might want to set to try and confuse your opponent. But let's look at the main damage dealer of the deck, Berry Fresh Happiness Harvest. During the main phase, this card is normal or special summoned. You can send up to 2 cards from your hand or field to the graveyard. Then, until the end of your opponent's next turn, this card's attack increases by the number of cards sent to the grave times 1500. Also, if you have 5 or more Aqua-type monsters in your graveyard, this card cannot be destroyed by your opponent's spell or trap effects. So the highest attack you can get with this card is 3100, 4100 if it's your turn and you have Berry Fresh Garden on the field. You definitely want to get this card online when you need to clear over large monsters or feel like you can deal lethal damage since its effect doesn't last forever. Its destruction prevention is also really nice to protect itself from things like Jess of the Cosmos Princess, which is a super popular card to play. Just make sure you do have 5 Aqua monsters in the grave first. Berry Fresh Pleasure might be the hidden sleeper of the deck. Sure, you can send a card to the grave and gain 1500 attack, but if you specifically discard a monster with 100 attack, you can choose a monster on your opponent's field and change their position to face-up attack or face-down defense. This means you have an opportunity to shut down a Deity of 7 Treasures Ryozai that's on the field. By turning this card to face-down defense, you turn off its protection and now you can use cards like Jest of the Cosmos Princess to destroy your opponent's board. You can also use it to turn face-down monsters to face-up attack to hopefully deal some significant damage as well. Berry Fresh Shy has a powerful continuous effect in which as long as you have a face-up Aqua monster other than this card on the field, all face-up monsters on your opponent's board lose 1500 attack and defense. This synergizes super well with cards like Sui Generis and can help you hit over powerful cards like Enigmatas or defense position Ryozais. This is such a powerful debuffer. However, because it does not gain any attack, it is super weak by itself and will need some sort of protection to prevent your own life points from withering away. If you are needing some more card draw, you can use Berry Fresh Rich to remove cards that you might no longer need on the board. If you do choose an Aqua-type monster with an original attack of 100 to send to the grave, you actually get to draw an additional card. Just like Shy though, it's super weak on the board, so make sure you do have good follow-up after you use this card. The last monster I want to highlight is Berry Fresh Artless. On the turn you normal or special summon this monster, you can choose a Berry Fresh Happiness or Berry Fresh Happiness Harvest from the grave and add it back to your hand. If you chose Happiness Harvest though, you have to send Artless from your field to the graveyard. This is a super flexible card depending on what the board state is. Berry Fresh Happiness can help you remove one of your opponent's back row, while Happiness Harvest is just a strong piece for your attacks. So assess the board and figure out what works for you. Now, let's talk about the Berry Fresh spells and traps that you might want to use in your deck. The main card you want to play is Berry Fresh Garden. While this card is face up on the field, all Aqua-type monsters on the turn player's field with an original defense of 500 gain 1000 attack. This can definitely help turn the tides and give a much needed boost to your Berry Fresh monsters to hit over most cards. Berry Fresh Sui Generis is decent enough, allowing you to destroy a face-up monster with 1500 attack or less on the field. Then you can special summon a Aqua-type monster with 100 attack from your graveyard face-up on your side of the board. You can use this to destroy your opponent's monsters, especially if Shy's debuff is in effect. But you can also use this to destroy one of your own monsters if they're not needed, like when you use Berry Fresh Rich. Now, the main trap card you're going to be using is Berry Fresh Swimming. When your opponent normal or special summons a monster with 1500 or less attack face up, while you have a face up Aqua-type monster on your field with 100 original attack, you can then destroy all face up monsters on the field except for those with 500 original defense. This is a very good board clear if you can get it off, especially since it can activate if a high level monster is summoned while you have Shy's debuff active. Just make sure you're not under a Ryozai or Sunset Rebirth or anything else that protects itself. Strawberry Farewell can destroy a card on your opponent's field when a monster on your field is destroyed by an attack or card effect while you have 5 or more Aqua-type monsters with 100 attack in your graveyard. This can be strong, but if your opponent knows how to maneuver the board well, they can easily shut this off or destroy it with their own cards. Now, it's time to see what cards can work really well with the Berry Fresh cards. I've kind of hinted at a few of this deck's main weaknesses, but we're going to do our best to compensate for them using a few of these cards. For your Legend monster, there's mainly 2 that's been seeing a lot of use. By sending 1 water attribute monster from your hand to the graveyard, Abyss Soldier lets you return 1 card from the field to the owner's hand. Since bouncing is not the same as destroying, this is a great workaround for those pesky protections. On that same train of thought, Ryza the Storm Monarch does a similar effect. On the turn that you normal summon this card in attack position, you can place a card on the field onto the top of the owner's deck. So it really depends on what you feel like your deck needs. Abyss Soldier, while weaker than Ryza, can have the opportunity to be used more than once, but more importantly, is an Aqua monster that can help fulfill the graveyard requirement for Happiness Harvest. Ryza, on the other hand, can use its effect immediately with no cost and is a 2400 attack powerhouse. However, it can only be used the turn it's summoned. But let's be real, it's hard to get a second usage of Ryza most times anyway. With both of these cards though, you do have to be wary of Invitation to a Delirious Dream, since taking either card can be really tough for your strategies. Your Legend spell will focus on getting you more cards in hand, since a lot of Berry Fresh monsters need you to discard 1 from hand or field. So a few choices you have are Salvage, which can add 2 water monsters with 1500 or less attack from your grave back to your hand, Graceful Charity, which can get you a card and add some cards to the grave, hopefully ones that can be retrieved by your Berry Fresh monsters, and Pot of Greed, which does something, I don't really know. For the Legend trap, you can't go wrong with Magic Cylinder. It might be hard to deal significant damage early on, so having this as a backup is always a plus. If you want board clear, Mirror Force is also a good one, but if you're worried about strong monsters with card destruction protection, Compulsory Evacuation Device will play around that. Actually, the new Quaking Mirror Force could also be helpful, but having all their monsters face down also hurts your damage output since none of the Berry Fresh monsters pierce. Outside of Legend cards, Jess of the Cosmos Princess can help you remove key pieces on your opponent's board while possibly giving you 2 draws as well. Maceful Charity is one card that I will stand by for being an absolute necessity in this deck. This helps you cultivate your hand to give you the best chance of success. If you're still worried about back row, you could also run Overrush Storm to bounce back any spell or trap cards that could hinder your plays. Shiny Shady can be used as interruption and possibly gain some life points while you're at it. The new generic trap card, Intentional Draw, could also be useful in situations as well, but I haven't really seen a lot of people use it. And Sunset Rebirth is your best way of protecting your cards during your opponent's turn, especially since card destruction is more common nowadays. Next up are the tech pieces that you may or may not use depending on what you want to cook up. My favorite variation is utilizing both Executee Lilius and Lumiere. Coincidentally, all of the Executees have 500 defense, meaning that they won't be destroyed when you activate Berry Fresh Swimming. But also, these 2 cards are easy to get out either with their special summoning mechanic, or you can tribute a Berry Fresh card like Rich once you use its ability. Then, once you have both on the field, you can Contact Fuse into Executee Lumiere Frontier, a solid high attack monster with the ability to bounce a card back to your opponent, giving you more opportunities to attack. You also can't go wrong with Fadranir the Pure. This has been seeing some play as well, being able to give you one more draw in case your hand isn't ideal. However, that also goes for your opponent, so that's just a risk you're gonna have to take with this card. Another good card that many have found useful is Chemist Pet Parakeet. If you have no monsters on the field, you can summon this card and reveal one Pyro, Aqua, or Thunder type monster in your hand. You then mill 3 and add a Pyro, Aqua, or Thunder monster from the cards sent that have the same level as the one that you showed. This is a great way to get more berries at your disposal for effects or just to play. Even if you can't use Parakeet's effect, it can be used as cost for many of the Berry Fresh effects as well. Compared to a card like Fadronir that can always draw you one, Parakeet's requirement is more strict, but the milling is super nice. I've also seen variants run Splitter Slime, which is also a good card since you can send a buffed up berry monster as cost, and then both debuff an opponent's monster by 1000 attack, and special summon a level 4 effect monster with 1500 or more attack from your graveyard. You know, something like Abyss Soldier. That can be super useful for clearing out their board, but it also leaves you with a 1000 attack monster on the field. So unless you have good follow-up, be wary of using this too much. But it's also an Aqua monster, so if it's in the grave, it can help with activating Happiness Harvest protection effect. I saw online like 1 or 2 lists run Heartless Hound Martial Master Prime Shiba, a new card from Dark Matter of Phantoms as well. You can tribute summon this card using 1 tribute, a great way to remove unnecessary berries, but its attack is only 1800. Its effect is pretty good though. If you have a card in your field zone, send the top card of your deck to the graveyard. Then, if you haven't special summoned a monster this turn, you can special summon a level 4 or lower monster from your graveyard face up to the field. Just like Splitter Slime, you can also summon Abyss Soldier off it as well, but you also get a stronger body on the field. Maybe this is worth it. And hey, if you really want to cook, you could use Diabolic King Beetle to super buff one of your own cards if you can ensure it's going to deal a ton of damage, since every Berry Fresh monster is level 1. And I really didn't want to talk about this, but you could run the whole 7-ship package as well. Am I a fan of this? No. But can it work? I mean, I guess. All these cards help many decks become viable, so while it might be boring to see these cards all the time, that doesn't mean that they aren't useful. Okay, so now that we have a general idea of the deck, let's weed out the weaknesses of these cards. First off, they're super weak to the destruction effects. With only 1 card that can kind of protect itself, the Berry Fresh cards are susceptible to all other forms of destruction, so things like Jest or Trad Tax can seriously hurt your board. Some Berry Fresh monsters don't buff themselves and can be a weakness. Look out for your Berry Fresh Shies and Riches since they're mostly used as utility and not for damage. If you have to leave one on the field, find ways to protect them or risk losing a lot of life points. Even with buffs, most Berry Fresh monsters are easily destroyed in battle. If you don't have a Shy up, 3100 attack and 1600 attack are not big enough numbers to safely protect from most decks. However, it's better than nothing. And finally, if you do play this deck, you are going to be running a very tight resource game. Because many berry effects need you to discard 1 for cost, you're going to be limited in your resources. That's why we add so many cards that can just draw. Just pray you get the right ones when you need them. And with that, we can finally conclude my first Rush review. I was definitely nervous about doing this, but since I've been testing this deck out for locals at the Witch's Kitchen Discord server, I figured why not give my take on the deck as well. If people like it, maybe I can do more of these in the future, but only with decks that I'm using or vibe with. I don't think I can do them all. Who knows? We'll see. With that though, I hope you learned something new about the deck, or if you want to try it out yourself, tell me what you use in the comments below. Thanks for watching.